At this time, I'll call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? We'll operate under that agenda. The very first item then would be the introduction of the Marshall Municipal Utilities Manager, Pete Weifels. Pete is here this evening. Recently started, I believe, at the very last week of August. You began your position. I'll invite Pete to come forward to the microphone and introduce yourself to the public.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
There's a button there that you can read. That's fine.
I got to push this?
No. If you want to raise the podium,
okay.
That's fine.
I'm good. Well, we're good. Anyways, I'm Pete Weifels, new general manager for Marshall Municipal Utilities. I started off my career back here at Marshall in 1992. So I was there for 14 years as a lineman. I became a lead lineman, and then in 2006 I ended up moving up to Litchfield, Minnesota, and became a journeyman up there, or not journeyman, but a lead lineman up there, and then became a foreman for the electric co-op up there. So did another tour over at Glencoe Light and Power as their distribution operations superintendent and also their generation plant superintendent. And then 5 years ago, I went over to Chaska, Minnesota. I've been their electric director since. So, yeah, and thanks, Bob. I just got back here on August 29th, so glad to be back. Marshall's a hometown of mine. I have a couple girls that still live down here, 6 grandchildren, so we're glad to be back. So.
Well, welcome to your new position, and MMU has a strong history of partnership with the city and working together for the continued growth of the city. So
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll move then to agenda item number 2, which is consider the approval of the minutes of the meetings that were held on September 9th. The council does have the minutes of those meetings. Are there any corrections to note?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Motion by Jim, second by Amanda. We'll move to a vote.
Abstain because I wasn't here.
So-
I'll abstain because I wasn't here.
Okay.
Just so you know.
And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll note the one abstention. Agenda item number 3 is a public hearing. This is the first of several public hearings that we'll have this evening. We'll follow the same procedure on all the public hearings that we'll have a brief introduction of what the topic is, then open up for any public comment, then we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll consider the resolution that was discussed at the public hearing. So the first public hearing, this is a tax abatement application for 1310 East College Drive. Once again, we will have the public hearing. Following the public hearing, we'll consider the resolution granting the abatement again for 1310 East College Drive. So I will call on Stephen, are you connected? I'll call on Lauren Deitz, Economic Development Director, to introduce and conduct this public hearing. Lauren?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to give a brief overview of the project. Lockwood Motors is doing a major expansion of the dealership facility located on East College Drive. Additions include a new service drive, quick service pit, and new Chevrolet showroom. Construction is underway and is anticipated to be completed in 2026. With the addition, they'll be adding 6 to 8 new service techs, and the project is being completed by a local contractor, Bladholm Construction. It's a 19,000 square foot addition and a roughly estimated $3.2 million valuation. The proposed tax abatement would be a 4-year, $41,850 scaled abatement. That's the overview. We do have Chet available to answer questions on the project as well.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Is there anyone present in the audience that wishes to speak as part of the public hearing? Any input or questions that the council has as part of this public hearing?
The only question I have is, this fits with the tax abatement policy we have, then to me, it's a no-brainer. It's our policy.
Correct. There's a couple different criteria that we can follow, one of which for this project would be to retain and increase jobs. So with the positions being created, it's also redevelopment of a site with the building that was torn down.
This is what our policy is created to do. And we thank the business owners for doing it.
Craig?
Yeah, and I'd like to just echo on that too, and I just really appreciate it. I think I really like the option of having both TIF and tax abatement as an engine to drive for development and for jobs. So I really appreciate the city and EDA looking at the abatement, and I appreciate the business people that are doing the expansions and the growth and putting that drive into Marshall. So it's a really
Any
good thing.
other input as part of this public hearing? If not, I'd entertain a motion to close the public
So
hearing.
move.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim to close the public hearing. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll now consider the resolution that would grant the abatement.
I move the resolution.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. So we'll move to agenda item number 4. This is a tax abatement application for 1106 West Main Street. We'll follow the same procedure. We'll have the public hearing, and then follow the public hearing, we'll consider the resolution. Once again, I'll call on Lauren Dietz.
Thank you. Ben Wright has recently purchased a new laser, which will allow them to have the largest cutting capacity in the state of Minnesota. But with the purchase of the laser, they were in need of doing a building addition. So they are currently constructing an 80 by 80 steel frame addition to the north end of the existing shop. The cost of that is roughly $600,000 with the infrastructure and building itself that's being put in. And it is being completed locally by local contractor Space Development. And it will also create one position with the laser operator and potential for additional positions with work capacity increasing with the project. This abatement is proposed at 4 years, $9,710 at a scaled abatement.
Okay. Thank you, Lauren. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak as part of this public hearing? Questions the council has, again, as part of this public hearing?
I don't have a question. I have a comment again. And again, it's about development. And I think that when we look at this now, not only it's at least one job and possibly very easily more, but again, it's technology. And I think we look at Marshall and where we lay here, I'm proud of the fact that we are a regional hub. It is a little bit handicapping sometimes, and to see our business people willing to develop in the community and invest and add that kind of technology just really helps to drive, again, the specialties that we have in Marshall. When you look at the industry and the things that happen here, I'm really proud of it. And I think that as a business community and we look at this, I think it puts Marshall in a really solid place. And I'm sure utilities love the fact that Billy's going to be running a big laser out there, because I'm sure that's going to be some work going into that too. So again, I just think it's really good to see that growth and that investment in the community.
Thank you, Craig. Any other input?
There is, and I think it's more, you say it's just one job, but it's the construction jobs. It's, the jobs of, as the largest laser in the state, it's the equipment coming in, the material coming in, the material going out. Those people also come to town and spend money. It's more than just one job. It's all that comes in and out with this, the largest lasers in the state. Who knows what that could bring to the community for other opportunities. People forget that. I always use the example of the roof to the stadium in Houston was built out of Porter, Minnesota. People don't realize that. What that can bring to Marshall. Maybe someday we can sit at the stadium and say, well, that came out of Marshall, Minnesota. I always tell, I was there once, I said, that train was built in Porter, and the guy next to me says, where the hell is Porter, Minnesota? And I Googled it up, and it's a piece of pride too. But it's more than just that. It's more than just one job.
Very good. Any other input as part of this public hearing? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Amanda. Discussion. If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll now consider the resolution that would grant the abatement.
I move the resolution.
by Craig,
I'll second.
seconded by Amanda. Discussion. If there's no discussion, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Before we move on, I think it would be appropriate to thank both Mr. Lockwood and Mr. Martins for their continued investment in Marshall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
We'll move on then to agenda item number 5. This is a vacation of the right-of-way on Paul Street, which subdivisions outlot 4 and 5, Country Club Edition. We'll have a public hearing on this, and then following the public hearing, then we'll consider the resolution that would grant the petition vacating this portion of the right-of-way. I'll call on Jason Anderson, City Engineer, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. So city staff was approached about this vacation by an adjacent property owner. Property owner was interested in acquiring the right-of-way to the east of Paul Street, identified on the exhibit. Maybe the next one, Stephen. Yep. So staff did review the request, and the property owner was patient. This took us a little time. We had to commission a survey, which the property owner agreed to pay for to help along the process. We see no reason to not vacate the right-of-way. There's no future road use here. It goes from the end of Paul Street out to the center line of the river. On the other side of the property would be like the west side school property. No reason for the city to maintain right-of-way here, so we agree with the vacation. We are retaining an easement over a storm sewer pipe that drains Paul Street to the river. And you see that identified in the certificate of survey there as well. So staff would recommend that we go forward with the vacation, and we have notified all the other utility companies in the area and let them know of the vacation, and we heard back nothing, so.
Okay. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak as part of this public hearing? Any comments from the council on the request? If there isn't, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Motion by C,
Second.
seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And that motion does pass. So we'll now consider the resolution that would grant the petition vacating the portion of the unused right-of-way on the end of Paul Street. Questions about that resolution?
I move the resolution.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Okay, we'll move then to agenda item number 6, agenda item number 6, which is the assessment of the unpaid fire services. We'll have a public hearing on this, and then following a public hearing, we'll consider the resolution that would accept the special assessments for the unpaid services. I'll call on Stephen Anderson, City Clerk, to conduct this public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a public hearing for the assessment of unpaid services for the city. Typically, these assessments involve either mowing, dead tree removal, and in this case also includes unpaid fire service calls. On the listing, I would like to note that the property owner on North 6th Street has paid their assessment. So I would recommend that be removed from certification if it does go through later. As well, if you'll notice on the fire calls, none of those property addresses are within city limits. With our fire contracts with Fairview and Sodus Township, they do authorize us to assess on their behalf to the county. And that's why we're able to have properties that are not within city limits on our assessment. If there are any questions on it, I'm available, and Fire Chief Brunswold's also here.
Okay, very good. We'll open it up for any comment, any member of the audience or member of the council that has input or questions regarding this public hearing.
I have a couple of questions, and Quentin, you can maybe help me on this. Stephen, can you go up to Exhibit A? So, and I know these are unpaid fire calls. So my question is, these are fire calls that were in the Marshall Fire Department? I'll let you raise your podium up because it seems a little,
You know what I like to say at this time.
so. So these are fire calls that were in the Marshall Fire Department call area, correct?
Yes,
So, because I see that the Gantt Fire Department fire area bumps up to Marshall city limits.
correct.
So if there's a fire call in that area, that's Gantt's responsibility to collect the money?
Correct.
Okay, and how does that work? And I know maybe this isn't the right place, but I ponder, how do I question this? Who's the first guy on that call? If it's, because it literally borders the Marshall city limits.
Councilmember, that's hypothetical. I can't answer that question.
Okay. I'll go with that. So I won't touch it anymore though.
But we probably both understand what the answer is.
I do. So with mutual aid, Gantt collects that money and it is what it is.
Correct.
Yeah, I'll stop there then. Thank you.
But in these cases, that is within the service area of the Marshall Fire Department.
I'm sorry, Mayor, what was that?
This is within the service area of the Marshall Fire Department.
This
Those
is
are
correct.
townships.
We will note, Stephen, if you can go back to that exhibit, whatever it was. The property for the very first one, Jacob Albee, that property, that actually did, the fire was in the city limits. He leases the land essentially. It's now the area where the new apartment complex is being built by Walmart, that area. But that's his property out, that's his address, so that's where we sent the bill to. So that actually was within the city limits is where the fire was.
Okay. Any other questions or input as part of the public hearing? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move. Second.
Craig, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the public hearing. And the motion does pass. We'll now consider the resolution accepting the special assessments for the unpaid services, and note that one on North Sixth Street is removed from that assessment list.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by C. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll now move to the consent agenda. We'll bring the items up on the screen that are on the consent agenda this evening. And they include consider the approval of an amendment to the Personnel Policy Manual, Appendixes A and B, the maximum allowable reimbursement and per diem rates. Consider the approval of the raffle permit for Ducks Unlimited. Consider the approval of temporary liquor license for the SMSU Foundation. Consider the resolution for removal of signage on McLaughlin Drive. The approval of the grant agreement between the City of Marshall and Southwest Minnesota Arts Council, approving the agreement between the City of Marshall and artist Sammy Joe Miller for the Drawn to Marshall art project, and authorize the appropriate signatures. Consider the adoption of the ordinance for the Central Business District, General Business District, and Limited Industrial District, and General Industrial District. And then finally, consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants removed for separate discussion?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Amanda, is there,
Second.
seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to agenda item number 14. This is the annual update, report from the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. And with us tonight representing the coalition in Flaherty and Hood is Marty Seifert. Welcome, Marty.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll give a brief update for the city of Marshall, since I also work for you in the capacity of government relations as well. So I'm going to just go through that quickly and then do the coalition report. City of Marshall had a very successful session in terms of the items that we were interested in. I know not all cities really got anything, but we put an agenda together, and the mayor, Sharon, and members of the council as needed came to St. Paul over and over again for Marshall, sometimes by Zoom, sometimes by conference call, midnight texts, and 2 a.m. conference committee meetings or whatever we were doing, but it was very good. So number one, the band shell, I was given directive to try to get some money from the state for that. They were not earmarking particular projects in the arts and culture bill, but we were able to insert language to essentially tell the Historical Society to give highest priority to a certain number of cities. I think there were maybe 7 or 9, Sharon, something like that. And Marshall is in that for our band shell. So I believe our application is submitted. We've got the paperwork in.
We have a
and-
draft application submitted, and the final one is due on the 17th. And my understanding, they should be giving us feedback on the draft, so kind of waiting for that, but
Wonderful.
we've got it in, so.
Good. So, and that was, I want to thank Representative Swazinski and Senator Dames for carrying the bill, and for, 840 cities to be one of like 7 or 9 to get in, I thought was wonderful. And I hope, obviously you all know whatever we get from the state is less on the levy. And one of the nice handouts, I want to thank the staff. I kind of think EJ came up with it, but how much Marshall has paid in the 3/8 of a cent sales tax and how much we've gotten back for arts and culture. It was something like we've paid in 30, or we've received maybe 30 to 40,000 and little, like maybe some trail money here or there, but we've paid in, I want to say, it was at 15 million that we estimated. It was a ludicrous amount of money. 15 million that the citizens in and around Marshall have paid in since the inception of that tax. And we've gotten very little back. So that was one of our compelling testimonies. We had a nice handout, and I think we guilted the legislators into saying, look, we've paid a lot in, we haven't gotten a lot back. So number 2, allowing expenditures on the Merit Center. I think, as you all know, the Merit Center had an appropriation that was given about 3 years ago for the gun range and some other items. The Office of Management and Budget is very picky about legislation and what's authorized. And so the bonding bill that year said that we had to spend the money on all of the line items that were listed in the bonding bill, and they didn't give us enough money to pay for all of those things. So we just wanted to finish the gun range, and they wouldn't let us do it. So we were able to get language inserted to allow those appropriations. So Jim Marshall is working through MMB, and that money is in the pipeline on the way here after sitting in the state treasury for about 2.5 years. So we did get that through as well. And then kind of a late coming thing we had was an extension of a TIF district. We needed state legislation to authorize that. And I want to thank the mayor for being available kind of on the fly for that one. And we got that inserted in the tax bill. So we were in the bonding bill, we were in the arts and culture bill, we were in the tax bill for the TIF district. And then, also on the fly this summer in getting connection with the governor's office when we had the flooding, and Sharon and I were standing around out at the park at whatever time it was that morning, and the mayor called this group together, the county commissioners and law enforcement and everyone to, Craig, you were there on, how do we get this cleaned up and how do we get the landfill waiving fees and just, I'm very impressed with the leadership of this community and how just everything can get put together real quickly. And I started all of this with just, trying to get the aquatic center local option sales tax through here a couple of years ago, which we were able to do, and we were the last horse out of the barn before the legislature put a moratorium on any local option sales taxes. And so we were literally the last city kind of moving through and had the last referendum. So, we very proud of that. We're going to have a nice aquatic center. They have very strong support across every ward. I think close to 70% support. I'm excited to be part of that and convince the tax committee that we needed to get this through. If we had to wait another 3 or 4 years, I want to say the aquatic center would probably be 25, 30 million by the time we would be voting next year and then going through bids. You can imagine how expensive it would be. So if people think it's expensive now, think about what it would have been had we not kind of gotten through the process. So for next year, we already met a little group on, what are some things we're looking at for next year, extra appropriations for the Merit Center, bonding items. It's a very short session next year. It starts in mid-February, so it's not going to be a real extensively long session. We'll see what the budget forecast looks like in November after Thanksgiving. Is there anything on the Marshall? I'll just kind of stop there. Anything on the Marshall side that anyone wants to ask about, or before I move on to coalition business?
Not a question, but just thank you, Marty, for your attentiveness to all of the issues that we could connect with during the session. So thank you.
Thank you. It was great. All right, let's move to the coalition. I have a handout here for you that is our end of session report. I'm just going to kind of go through some real high level things and open up for questions and then move on. But, we do want to make note about, I was in the legislature 14 years, about how difficult it is to serve these days with the Melissa Hortman murder. And, we made note of that on the front page here, but I just wanted to take a moment to recognize I did serve with Melissa for years. I literally texted John Hoffman, I think the week before he was shot, about some other issues working on with the disability community. So it just friends of mine, very kind of shocking about this whole thing. On the deficit, we do have a projected deficit into the near future for now. We'll see how the forecast comes out, but there were budget rescissions that were made, nothing too extreme. But there were some difficult decisions that had to be made. We were able to get some things through. We had an EMS bill that we were able to usher through for the rural emergency services area. Transportation, as it says on page 2, is about defense. There were some things we were disappointed in, but the governor had a high priority of new headquarters for Highway Patrol, and we're not against the Highway Patrol, obviously, but they paid for the $100 million headquarters out of the Trunk Highway Fund. We've kind of believed like the Trunk Highway Fund and the gas tax is really supposed to be used for roads and bridges, not for like building. As meritorious as the Highway Patrol is, that money probably should have came from somewhere else and not out of the road fund. But so we are going to have our corridors of commerce program dinged a little bit to help pay for those bonds. We did have some good things: local road improvement, local bridge replacement programs funded in the bonding bill. The transportation bill itself was not overly robust because of the deficit, and they don't get a lot of general fund money. Most of it is related to dedications from gas tax, license tab fees, renewals, et cetera. The housing battle on undermining local control of zoning, that's a battle every year that we have had to fight for about 3 years now. We believe the people in this room know your community. The people in this room should be able to figure that out. You have staff that knows your infrastructure, and we should not have the legislature meddling around with local zoning laws. That is traditionally, for over 150 years, Minnesota has deferred to local control of zoning, and we really have had a battle with some of the legislators on this. Some are friends of mine, but they're wrong on this. And so, and I think Marshall's very progressive on looking at all of our options on housing. You look at like what we did on the west side of town in partnership with the Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership. We need more of that. Single-family homes, people are able to buy them, eventually improve them, unfinished basements, but the neighborhood looks nice. That's the model the rest of the state should be looking at. So, and I want to thank Sharon. I think you've had to testify on this, so.
I didn't do it this past
I think last year we called on you.
Prior.
Yeah, and that was the tougher year.
I think it's a really tough issue, and they're going to bring it back. So
Yep.
we have to keep battling it, and, it's an erosion of autonomy and local control, so.
Yeah, so thanks for, allowing us to utilize Sharon's persuasive skills. We were essentially against everybody, from the state's largest newspaper to unions to construction companies to, Isaiah and the religious groups and everybody else. So there were like 65 groups in favor of this bill, and us in the league were against it, and we beat it for 3 years now. So I'm pretty proud of the groups and the persuasive nature of your staff and your mayors and members of the council. So We did have a bonding bill this year. A lot of it went to PFA, the Public Facilities Authority for Sewer and Water. They went down the list. We didn't have any special appropriations for special cities. It just went down the general list. There were not a lot of porky projects. It was generally basic infrastructure for bonding. Worked on some things with childcare, trying to get more money in for facility grants. And then Lauren can attest to this. Just the problem is we have so much need and not enough money. And I know childcare is a big issue in Marshall, and it hinders job growth. If people don't, young families, need childcare, or they're not going to be able to make things work back home. And so it's a big issue. Protection of LGA is the last thing I'm going to touch on. Local government aid is a big issue for obviously our rural cities. Now, Marshall, it's a big issue, but for the cities around Marshall, it's 55% of their budget. And you look at Ghent, Cottonwood, Garvin, Milroy, you're talking about steep property tax increases. They don't have a lot of staff. They don't have a lot of things they can cut. So you're talking, if they cut LGA, we have some very big issues with property tax increases. We were able to beat back the reduction that the Senate had proposed, a $20 million reduction to local government aid. We want to thank the House chairs on both, and they're tied in the House, but we got Democrats and Republicans to both come together and say, no, we're not cutting LGA, because it means cut to services or big property tax increases. And they said no. So our LGA will be predictable. It's going to stay the way we have it, and your staff can kind of put together budgets knowing that LGA will be there next year. So that's kind of where we're at on things. We have questions, concerns. We thought it was, considering the deficit and the partisan rancor, we considered it a fairly decent session at the end of the day.
Well, thank you, Marty. Let's open up for any questions. Sharon, do you have anything you want to add?
I just want to add, we started out the 25 legislative session with merit and the ban shell, but things popped up. I mean, LGA housing that you mentioned, but the TIF language too was, I think, a really good win for the city. It gives us flexibility for 2 years. And so just having the services of Marty available is really important. And honestly, I've talked to staff to find kind of the right process, the right people. We can't do it without Marty, because you can't look it up on the internet and say, okay, we got to do this. You got to know kind of the back end of this, and the connections and the experience that Marty provides really makes it successful. So I just want to add that and really appreciate your work.
Thank you. I do want to give kudos to Senator Dames and Representative Swazinski. They carried all our bills, got them through in a pretty tough environment. So I do want to thank them for stepping up, because some legislators will say, hey, I'm not interested in this, but they've always been very good.
Awesome.
Any other input from the council?
Well, the only input I have, and I know this is going in the future, but we always bring up housing. I know they're going over the building code in the very near future, like starting, I suppose, now. And the proposals that are coming up, they're going to add a lot of costs to it. I'm sure you're probably aware of that already. And in rural America, those costs are hard to absorb, because our new housing construction is already too high. I mean, I've read in my Housing First magazines, but you're talking, some of these houses will see an 8 to 10% increase in the new code coming out. Something that I'm sure the Coalition of Minnesota Cities, but you as fellow councilmen are aware that with the new code coming out, there's talking a substantial increase in cost of a new construction home.
And it's one thing that legislators need to know about. They talk about why don't we have housing? They're making housing more expensive over here. And then on the other end saying, we don't have enough housing and it's too expensive. Well, over here needs to reconcile with over here. In North Dakota, in the last I checked, North Dakota doesn't have a lot of people lying around from, dead from housing problems. You've got Moorhead and you've got Fargo. All the building permits are on the Fargo side.
It does an energy. Actually, maybe read the same study I did about the house. How more efficient is the house in North Dakota over Minnesota? So you maybe read the state. So
you're talking 20% differential on housing price. That's a big deal. Because at some point you're pricing the market out, and the mortgage lenders are going to say,
as the council becomes aware, because we're running into that South Dakota and Minnesota, we're at the same border issue. So.
Yep.
So that's something to aware of. That's coming through for this, city staff. That's coming up, and I think that'll be next year. That'll get pushed through. or work, it should be worked on, I shouldn't say pushed through, that's not the right word to use.
Very good. Any other input?
Just want to echo your thanks to Marty and all the work that you do and how helpful that is to the city. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you,
All right,
Marty.
thank you.
We'll move then to agenda item number 15, consider approval of a voluntary furlough policy. I'll call on Sheila Dubbs, our Human Resources Director.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
You might need to lower that.
Might need to lower that. Okay. This evening, we are proposing a voluntary furlough policy as a pilot program for about 15 months, which would expire on December 31st of 2026. We would be offering employees the opportunity to voluntarily request unpaid time off from work. The time off may be as little as an hour or as much as 80 hours in a calendar year. The voluntary furlough time could be taken as a block of time or a full week, for instance, or it could be as small as an hour, not required to be consecutive. If an employee wants to use furlough time under this policy, the employee would be required to notify their supervisor in advance that they are requesting furlough time, and then the supervisor would determine if that request can be accommodated. Staff do believe that there would be benefits to both the city and employees if this were approved. The city would realize a budget savings while minimizing impact to operations. And our employees would benefit by having the flexibility to take time off without having to utilize a leave accrual or impact their benefit elections. If an exempt employee, a salaried person, is approved to take furlough time off, we would need to comply with the Fair Labor Standards Act, and so that employee's classification would be changed to non-exempt for the week in which the furlough time is used. And then the employee would be returned to exempt status the first day of the next work week in which no furlough time is approved. One of the most important pieces of this policy is that furlough time off cannot create additional overtime, either for the employee taking the furlough time or for other employees during that employee's furlough. This policy, for your consideration this evening, would be applicable to non-union full-time employees only. We have carved out the other staff from this. If the council approves this evening, staff will connect with the AFSCME union business agent to see if AFSCME union members are interested. And if they are, we would offer this voluntary furlough policy through a memorandum of agreement, and we would bring that back to you at a future meeting. We do not believe that we would be able to offer this policy to our two LELS unions, our police department, due to the challenges of staffing the open shifts that it would create, because that would create overtime compensation to backfill those shifts while the employee is on a furlough leave. If we have success with this furlough policy as a budgetary savings and employees remain interested, we would like to come back to the council in 2026 to consider incorporating this into our personnel policy manual. Sharon, did I miss anything that you wanted covered on this?
No, I know that we have contacted another city that did similar proposal in 2009, I believe. And they did it as kind of as a draft policy and then later incorporated into the formal policy. Sheila and I have been talking about this policy since at least 2022. I think it's something that can be offered that may create a benefit to the city and the employee. It does provide the employee some reassurance in terms of benefits. And because of the limit on hours, we're not talking a great liability to the city. So I think nothing ventured, nothing gained, and it would be interesting to see what kind of participation we get.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Sheila. Questions?
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Jim.
So you said you can't incur overtime, which is fine. But let's say, and I'm going to use Sharon you as an example. So our city administrator's on furlough for a week and then we have a major storm. Can she be forced to be called back in and return that furlough per se? And I'm thinking of like the July 1st storm of was it 2011? Or a flood or something. At that point, can the call go in and say, okay, your furlough has been revoked? Or Sheila, the employee problem, is that written in there someplace? Is that something that could be written in there?
I don't think that we should write the exception in there. I think that if that happened, we would contact our attorney for guidance on that. We do have to comply with the Fair Labor Standards Act. That being said, of course, emergencies happen. We would
Correct.
deal with that emergency. We would do what is proper and needed to be done.
Other questions?
Sheila, how many employees does this affect?
Full-time employees only of the non-union group is, I'm gonna guess it's about 50 employees. We have, our largest union is the AFSCME union. So if they were interested in this, that would add a significant number of more employees.
Thank you.
And any other input?
Just, I think I agree. I really support us doing this as a pilot to test. I think there's a lot of potential advantage both to the employees and the employer. Think of a number of scenarios where even a day block or whatever is very helpful. And I think it's more to the non-exempt employees, I think, for that advantage. And for exempt employees, I can really see a fit for things coming up, family situations and such, that it's a lot easier than the FMLA or other things if things pop up. I really like this as a tool both ways.
Any other input or questions? If not, you have the recommendation from our HR department and staff. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the furlough policy as written. Voluntary furlough policy.
I'll second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by C for approval of the voluntary furlough policy as a pilot program. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to agenda item number 16, consider the approval of the 2025-2026 property casualty insurance. I'll call on Carla Drown. Carla.
Hello. Insurance rates are again changing. So the league changes the insurance rates every January 1st. However, our renewal is October 1st. Therefore, the prior year rates apply to us. So for 25, the rates decreased by an average of 6.5%. With this decrease in the average inflation factors of 4%, the city is recognizing a net decrease for our 25-26 property casualty insurance premiums. The Cincinnati Insurance informed the city earlier this year that they no longer would cover the equipment breakdown coverage as a standalone coverage plan. They covered it because the league would not cover the MMU's gas turbines. So then we went outside and have another insurance company doing that. They no longer would do that. So the city's insurance agent, Joe from North Risk, he requested quotes on coverage from Hartford Steam, Liberty, and Travelers. Hartford Steam came in competitively compared to the other two. The other two, Liberty was at $104,054 and Travelers was $121,729. So substantially more than the $44,043 for the equipment breakdown from Hartford. There is a large decrease in that. For your information, so the insurance covers not only city, but it also covers the library and MMU. And for the equipment breakdown, MMU carries the largest portion of that expense with their gas turbine. So they're going to see the largest decrease over the city is what we are expecting. I don't have those breakouts. The insurance agent is working on those breakouts for me at this time. For our 2026 budget, we did put in a 5% increase over the prior year's actual expenses. So we do have some wiggle room there. So that all includes all of city. So For the actuals, we're 298,777, and we've got budgeted 313,713. So we got some room there. Any questions?
Questions?
EJ has one.
EJ?
It's not a question, just want to relay that, as Carla mentioned, this is for the city as a total, so this includes wastewater as well, not just the funds that are levied for as part of the property tax.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Anything else, Carla?
Nope.
So you have the recommendation from staff. The action would be to approve the recommendation.
Make a motion to approve.
Amanda, seconded by Craig. Discussion?
I've seen insurance premiums go down. This is great.
Yes.
Shocking.
Any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 17, consider the resolution adopting the preliminary 2026 property tax levy. EJ, do you have this one? I'll call on EJ Moberg, Director of Administrative Services. EJ.
Thank you. So thinking way back, it was way back in June that we started this budget process with budgets going out to staff. Your first involvement came in July with the community service requests, or the community requests. And then we had a couple of work sessions here in August and September. So here we are tonight. We're asking for the proposed preliminary levy for 2026 is the $10,610,168, which is a 7.5% increase. Again, as we've talked about that amount in detail over the past few work sessions, our biggest factors in that is that we're not alone. There are a lot of cities that are right in our range or higher again. And we feel comfortable with the 7.5% at this time going forward for a preliminary levy. We still are working on health insurance and things of that nature, so we hope to potentially have additional savings later. We'll see. Again, at the beginning of this, or at our first work session, we were at a 20% increase for health insurance is what we were estimating and what we were told to estimate. We're now down to 13. Like I said, we're continuing to work with that as well. That was the biggest individual item by itself, because obviously that impacts the most folks with everyone with healthcare. But again, so what's in the packet is the resolution that also not only sets the levies by fund, which cannot increase after it's set, except for special add-on levy things that are spelled out by statute and by the Department of Revenue, which we don't anticipate. So this is the most it can be for next year. We can lower them if we're able to before December. Also in this resolution, it includes setting the truth and taxation notice hearing date, which we proposed, as we've discussed earlier, on December 9th at 6 p.m., which is during a council meeting, regular scheduled council meeting for that period. And then if it moves forward after the TNT on December 9th, the idea would, the final budget and levy would come back to council then on December 16th. So are there any questions regarding where we're at?
Thank you, EJ. Questions for EJ? I think it's worth noting the council spent time on this over the past several months, but staff really had a considerable amount of effort that went into kind of trimming the budget to the point where it is right now. Input or questions from the council?
Well, the only input is originally EJ brought this to us, I believe it was 13.96%. So the public realizes that the staff worked hard on this, fellow council members, that this is a good budget that the staff has brought forward and the council's looking at, that we're approving for preliminary levy. And as EJ says, they can keep working at it, but for where we're at with our money and our budgets and stuff, there's a lot of sacrifices being made by our employees and by others on this, in this 7.5% levy. This is a good levy, preliminary levy. So, and I want to thank EJ, because I know I make a lot of phone calls to him, and I probably burn his phone up in July and August. I appreciate that, EJ.
Other input from the council?
That was only because he really wanted 9.9, right?
I did not say that.
Should we talk about what he asked for versus what we're
Nope,
proposing? Okay.
we'll just leave that a secret. It was,
Okay. If there's no other input, I would entertain a motion that, on the resolution that would adopt the preliminary 2026 property tax.
I'll make
levy.
that motion.
By Jim, seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to agenda item number 18, consider appointments to various boards and commissions. Earlier this evening, the council met in special session, interviewed applicants for several boards and commissions, and based on those interviews, I'd recommend the following, that Pam Kesselut be appointed to a term on the Adult Community Center Commission. That term will expire on May 31st, 2028. That Quentin Fixon be reappointed to a second term on the Airport Commission. That term will also expire May 31st, 2028. And that Steve Theris be appointed to a partial term that will expire February 28, 2026 on the Community Services Advisory Commission. And I'd offer that as a recommendation and entertain a motion by the council to affirm.
I move approval.
Motion by Craig,
I'll second.
seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to Commission Board Liaison Reports. Craig?
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Amanda?
I did not meet.
Amanda?
Planning Commission met 2 weeks ago on the ordinance changes we made in the consent agenda today. And then EDA, we spent our time listening to a presentation on the referendum. That's the school district referendum, and I'm just encouraging everybody to go vote on November 4th.
And early voting is actually open right now.
Early voting is open, and you have to go to the district office to vote.
John Elkhorn is not present this evening, but he and I did attend the Public Housing Commission meeting last Thursday evening. And then their next meeting is not going to be until October 24th because there's some commission members that are taking some extended time. So there'll be a vacancy. One of the things that they did do at their meeting was take refuse garbage collection bids, and the new bid is in the competitive environment, is with the same contractor, but is substantially lower than what the past 3 years has been. So that's good for the Public Housing Commission. See?
Yes, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Commission met, and the Red Cross came and did a presentation. And they also provided support for some of those affected by the July 18th rainstorm. And they just talked about what people can do if they need help. And then we also debriefed about Welcoming Week that happened last week. And then the Convention Visitors Bureau, we had a lot of community tourism support applications, which was amazing. So we'll be supporting a lot of things such as Habitat for Humanity, the Hmong New Year, which is October 18th, so mark your calendar at Red Baron. And then, just so you know, this Saturday is the Arts and Living History Festival that is on the street between Schwann's and Memorial Park. And it'll be this Saturday. So if you want something to do, go check it out.
Very good. And Jim?
I was unable to attend mine.
So we'll move then to council member individual items. Jim?
Just keep watching out for kids. I would like to give Kevin DeBoer a shout out. Today I watched him. He stopped his car and helped a young child across the road for cars that were not stopping again. And I will harp on that until everybody starts stopping for our children. I do want to give Kevin a shout out. I stopped and I waved at him, and I appreciate citizens that do that. Just stop for our children, people. I know the police are patrolling, and I talked to a crossing guard. He says it's getting better, but I will keep harping on until everybody stops, let our children cross the roads.
See?
I don't have anything.
Craig?
Yeah, and C mentioned that the Arts and Living History Festival, and I just want to say my hat's off to Cassie. Deb and I watched her yesterday morning on Channel 5, and you know how fortunate we are. She represents Marshall so well, and just to let people know, you know, there'll be a really nice personal tour of the 9/11 piece at about noon on Saturday. So if your board want to listen to that, I'd be proud to have you there.
Very good. Amanda?
I don't have anything.
Amanda?
I don't either.
You know, we mentioned the Arts and Living History, the 9/11 tour, or the Memorial Park. The one other upcoming event that I want to highlight is the Veterans Suicide Prevention and Awareness Day. That's going to be on Saturday, October 4th. This is really a statewide conference. It's going to be held at the Red Baron Arena, so it'll be a very quality conference. With that, we'll move then to the next agenda item, which is staff reports. Sharon?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, I'll be very brief. Just found out this week, and this was after the July 18th flooding that happened pretty much in the city of Marshall and nowhere else. United Way has secured some funds, and they will make those available to residents who are impacted and need assistance. I believe they have a review process set up, and if there's ways we can help communicate, we'll absolutely do that. But just found that out this week, which is really promising, and credit to the United Way board, because they really stepped up and dedicated some funds to that particular event. And I have to ask about the August 18th event as well, because we know that also occurred to some of the same properties. Last week, too, I know I missed a few meetings that council was at in terms of Aquatic Center and DEI. Was at a league board retreat with other cities. Really good to hear their challenges, very similar to Marshall. But comparisons of levies, anywhere between 15% to 1%, so a wide range. So we know that everybody's challenged by revenue. We did have a presentation from the Colorado League of Cities, and they did have a representative from a suburb of Denver. And South Dakota has this, Colorado has this, part of their revenue stream is sales tax. And obviously, we know sales tax for us, we have to get approved by the legislature. It's got to be for capital, can't be for operating or equipment in the state of Minnesota. But one of the city that did present, similar size in population to Marshall, although a suburb of Denver, which helps a lot. Their annual sales tax revenue is $60 million. That helps provide support to their operations. So every city is different, got challenges, but definitely gives them some flexibility. Of course, that can go up and down, but yeah, you hear some of that, and we've got real challenges here, and I think, again, just like what council has said, our work with the levy, it's really great what staff did and all the work that finance staff also put into putting it together. So do want to comment on one other thing, and I was going to have Stephen comment on this. You had your council board appointments this evening. In State of the City this past year, we mentioned council appointments. There was a video. Amanda Schwartz, our council member, was in that video, and I actually do think it spurred some interest. Maybe not most recently, but initially it did, and I think it was very successful to do what the city did at that point. But I thought it would be good for Stephen just to comment on how many vacancies really are out there. I don't think there's a lot, so.
Thank you, Sharon. Yes, after this last round of appointments, almost all of our commissions are full now, and I think this is the fullest it's been since before I've started. The Adult Community Center does have an opening. Merit Center has an opening, and the Police Advisory Board has an opening. Otherwise, pretty much all the rest of them are full. So if anybody's interested, my information should show up at the beginning of the meeting, at the end of the meeting. You can send me an email and I can let you know what you want to know.
Sounds good. Any questions for Sharon? If not, Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. I can give a quick construction project update. We expect paving on Minnesota Hill Charles starting tomorrow, hopefully wrapping up by Thursday evening. So that'll be nice to put that project essentially to bed. The College Drive project, there has been an access change, you've probably noticed, and we've sent some press releases out, but the Saratoga intersection is open and passable. 4th Street, however, is not and will not be passable probably for quite a while here. They're starting utility work in that area probably tomorrow with water main work. So that's starting to progress. Lots of paving going on in the rest of the project area. So it's moving, and we're nearing the end with this first phase of the College Drive project. C Street Southview Trail has got gravel. It's graded and gravel behind the schools from between C Street and Southview, awaiting concrete. We don't have a timeline on when the concrete contractor is going to start. And the RRFBs are up on A Street and working, so that's nice to see. The trail by Aldi is in and looks nice. And the trail on County Road 7 is largely completed. We're waiting on some components for the RFB to make that operational how it's supposed to be. So that one's largely completed and will be soon. So I can answer any questions if you have them, but that's all I've got.
Jason, do you expect the, between Saratoga Street and Main Street, that section to open since Saratoga intersection's open?
Yeah, we've been talking about that a lot at the, at our project meetings. Probably not open. MnDOT wants the Main Street closure to remain in effect to make sure that trucks and things like that, people don't go down it and realize that they can't get out or they can't get to where they want to go. But there's a chance that we could see some barricades kind of softened at Saratoga that would allow people to turn and go up College Drive. There is a little bit of work that remains up there. There's some black dirt work and some striping work that has to get done. Maybe some minor electrical work. I can't remember if that got finished, but we're going to continue to talk about it and try to get people more access. I know the businesses have been very patient. There's been some businesses affected for quite a long time here, so we appreciate that. We'll continue to work to get access as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Jason? If not, City Attorney Whitmore?
Nothing for me tonight.
Okay. Then we'll move then to the remaining items on the agenda this evening, which include the listing of our cash and investments, our listing of building permits, and our listing of upcoming meetings. Is there anything further to come forward at this meeting this evening? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Jim,
I'll second.
second by Amanda to adjourn. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. Motion does pass.